Health Week. Today's topic is around hormonal health and how to keep happier hormones. And I have with us our naturopath, Sandra Villala. So welcome and thank you.
Thank you.
And Sandra is going to be discussing with us today how foods can impact hormonal health. So to start us off, Sandra, can you just give us a little bit of an insight into what hormones actually are?
Yes. So a hormone is a chemical messenger that's made in one organ, usually a gland, and then it travels in the body via the blood to work on other organs, and that's where it has its action. So when we think about hormones, women automatically think about estrogen. And so I thought that what we'll talk about is a little bit about that. So when we think about estrogen, we often think about the impact it has on women's bits. Yeah. So how estrogen impacts our breast, how it impacts on the uterus. But estrogen also, while it's made in the ovaries and other places, can travel and have an impact on our brain, and also on our ovaries and other places, can travel and have an impact on our brain and also on our bone and other organs as well. So I think what I thought I'd start with is talking about PMS, because about 40% of all women experience PMS, according to the research. Other research shows that it's much higher, and I'm sure most of you would think that it is higher than that. And last year there are some new guidelines. Last year there were some new guidelines that came out talking about the new understanding of what causes PMS. Because I find what women will often think of, there's too much hormone, not enough hormones, and what I need to do, my hormones are out of balance. But the new theories are talking about how there are some women who are just sensitive to the hormones that are experienced in that second half of the cycle. And these women are going to be more sensitive to the same sort of hormones that are found in the drug. So there's progestins that you might find in the pill or on menopausal hormone therapy, previously called hormone replacement therapy. And so it's not that it's too much of these hormones, it's that these women are sensitive to them. The other theory talks about the interaction with the hormones that we have in our ovaries and how they impact on these brain chemicals in our brain called neurotransmitters like serotonin, GABA, some of you may have heard of as well. So rather than looking at how we get rid of these hormones or how we deal with them, we need to look at how we make sure that these brain neurotransmitters are being made and taken care of. Yeah. And so in our diet, we need to make sure we're having adequate B vitamins, so whole grains are really important, and an adequate protein. So protein is made up of these little building blocks called amino acids, and the individual building blocks are the precursors for these neurotransmitters. And is there some foods which are better to have to get protein sources from, and what might they be? Yes, that's a good question, Ali, because there's some very interesting stuff out on the internet about how you increase your serotonin, and it's actually, unfortunately, not true. The only bit of, eating more bananas and stuff like that, the hormones, the amino acids that cross into the brain-blood barrier, it's a tricky process. So it's influenced by a lot of things. So the best thing is to have lean protein like eggs, meat, chicken, fish. If you are vegetarian or vegan, you've got to be really careful to make sure that you're getting a complete protein. Because say if you have rice, while it has some protein, it's missing another essential amino acid that we can't make. So you need to add something to that rice. So say you have some nuts. Nuts are missing an amino acid, but rice have it, and the nuts have what the rice is missing. So it's a complete protein. So combining those two together, you will have a complete protein. Yes. So the rules are, if it's not an animal source, you have a grain with a legume. A legume and a seed. Hummus, for example, is another one. Or a seed and a grain and a nut and a grain and a legume as well. Thank you. So also quinoa is a complete protein and as well. So vegetarians and vegans need to be making sure that they're getting adequate protein. Perfect. Thank you. So the other mineral that's useful for PMS is magnesium, and magnesium has been thought to be important since around the 1950s, even though the research is not great about it. But it tends to be that women who have lower amounts of magnesium tend to have more PMS and are more likely to have anxiety. Again, whole grains are really important. Seeds, particularly hemp and linseeds and pepitas. And we're going to talk about a chocolate slice that we have today, that the basis of that was trying to get these magnesium-rich food sources in them, and also green leafy vegetables like spinach.
That's quite focused on the Mediterranean diet, isn't it?
A little bit, yes. So can I now move on to talk about phytoestrogens, since we're talking about hormones? And there is a lot of misinformation about phytoestrogens. So phytoestrogens are plant estrogens. They look very similar to our own body's estrogen, and they behave a little similarly, but also differently depending on a woman whether she's premenopausal or postmenopausal. Okay. And if I can tell this story, I mean, it's interesting that so many people have the wrong idea about phytoestrogens. That I have a soy coffee and I go and order my coffee, and often the barista will say, no, we don't have soy. And I ask why, and they say because it's an endocrine disruptor. Because I think it's because it's a plant estrogen that's going to upset it, our way our hormones work. But it's actually a selective estrogen receptor modulator, which means it works on some of the receptors in our body to do good things, and it knocks out, it doesn't stimulate the tissues that we don't want to be stimulated.
Okay.
So it can be quite useful for women postmenopausally, for perhaps helping with hot flushes and low estrogen symptoms. But only a third of the population have the bacteria in the gut, and you can't take a supplement to make that bacteria come in, that converts the estrogen in the soy to a more active form. So only about a third of women will get benefit from having these foods, to help with their hot flushes or vaginal dryness or night sweats. And the amount that's needed is about 200 grams of tofu or about 100 grams of tempeh.
Fantastic.
But still, soy is a good food. It's got protein in it. It also helps to lower our bad cholesterol, so we can still use it just generally. So let's not forget about another important hormone, and that is thyroxine and our gland, the thyroid. So the thyroid is really important for women's health, and one of the minerals that's really important for the thyroid is iodine. And interestingly, in Australia, we're now all at risk of becoming a bit low in iodine, because we used to get a little bit of iodine in our dairy supply, because the dairy industry used the iodine cleansers to clean the vats, and so iodine would come into the milk. Now they don't do that anymore. They use a different sanitizer, so we're all a little bit at risk of not getting that kind of incidental sort of that iodine. Iodine is really important for women who are trying to get pregnant, and particularly in that early part of pregnancy, because then when we first get pregnant, our thyroid function has to increase by about 50% to make more hormones to meet the demands of the developing fetus.
Wow. So
even if a woman is mildly iodine deficient, the baby can have an IQ lower of up to 13 points.
My gosh.
So it's really important that we have adequate iodine, and the National Health and Medical Research Council in Australia recommend that women do actually supplement with 150 micrograms before pregnancy to meet that demand. And while we're talking about the thyroid, let's just watch out for eating too much raw kale, because what we have found, what we do know, is that the broccoli family, kale, broccoli, cabbage, they contain these things called goitrogens that can suppress the thyroid function and stop the thyroid absorbing the iodine to make it function. And so what's particularly high in these goitrogens are some types of kale and also Brussels sprouts. Okay. So the bottom line is if you cook these foods, it deactivates that. So if you cook the foods, it doesn't make it be a problem and interfere with our thyroid. So cook the kale, put spinach in your green smoothies, cook the kale, garlic and olive oil, that's beautiful about that, and cook Brussels sprouts, but just try and not have too many of those raw ones.
That's one of my favourite facts of yours, Sandra, with the raw kale. Now, just before we finish with you guys today, I just want to share with you a happy hormone slice which Sandra has created. It's on our Women's Health Week website, and I'll also pop the link in the comments box below. But Sandra, can you tell us why this recipe is so good?
Yes. It's basically, we all kind of feel like a bit of chocolate before our period, and actually looking at the research, there's all these ideas about what happens. But in fact, in Western women, the most accepted theory is that we kind of give ourselves an excuse. We're premenstrual, we're doing it. So it's to satisfy the chocolate craving that's made with raw cacao, and it's really rich in the magnesium-rich seeds. So it has hemp, which is a great, rich in magnesium, but it's also a complete protein, the hemp. And it has the pepitas and linseeds. It's got the chocolatey taste, and made with Brazil nuts as well, which is also high in magnesium. So it's to satisfy that chocolate craving that you need.
And it does, because Sandra did make some and I had a very good time in eating that. So I'll link you to that. And also please head across to our Women's Health Week website if you want to read out more information on promoting good hormonal health, and heaps of other resources on there too. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, everyone. We wish you a happy continuation of Women's Health Week.
Happy Women's Health Week.
Bye-bye.